is just an incredible story of, you know what I mean? It's just an incredible story how you can one day just have an idea that could change everything. You know what I mean? To have an idea that you could change everything, but not have the words to tell somebody how to do it. Sad story, happy story, you know, good story.
You will see all these little dots there, here. And two of these little dots in the true center of this multiplied and took the shape of a person from the one dot on one side of me and the other dot on the other side of me. And they just put their hand on me. And they were silver gray. All silver gray, the little dots like that. Silver gray dots.
For me, David Hamel was an exceptional person. He was exceptional because of the information he received. And it was information that taught him how to build a spacecraft. And it happened to him back in the 70s. That he had an experience with aliens. Not something he was expecting, not something he had any prior interest in or knowledge of, but he was at home in Maple Ridge, British Columbia with his wife and her girlfriend, and they were watching TV. They're actually watching Bonanza. They did that every week. And all of a sudden, he felt himself rising up from his chair, and he went up through the ceiling and out of his house. And consequently, he ended up in this alien craft, and they took him on a flight to the Gilmour area over a little creek called Beaver Creek. They said he would have to be there at some point in his life. He said that he would return to that spot.
2 years ago, mother-in-law came down here for a vacation to visit friends, and over dinner they were discussing selling this property. And Ma swears to this day that she heard in her head a voice saying, "Buy this." Information started coming in trickles about the previous owner, and something sparked an interest in me. So I started doing some research, as well as my wife. She started doing some research. And it turned to be a really interesting story, you know, about a man on a mission. And when I got here, I felt like I was home. Something was weird. It was like, you know, when you move into a new place, it's like that awkward breaking in the new house feeling. Here it was like, okay, I'm here, the place is in shambles, and I've got a big mission to do here, and I think it's just cleaning it up. But then it progressed into something more. It's like there's something else here that's just driving me nuts to keep going every day, right? I don't know how to explain it. It's just how I feel.
And here, now, that part up there is to show you the eye. By the way, this is the other part, from 4 feet to 8 feet in dimension. Now this eye is just to show you the eclipse of moon and weight. If you lift this, a little bit of expansion to lift, the ball fall on that butterfly, keeping rotating like that.
When Dave was in the craft over Beaver Creek, he looked down and there was an older gentleman at the edge of the creek with a couple of buckets of water. And he was getting the water out of the creek, and he got the 2 buckets out. And he picked them up, and he looked up and he saw the spacecraft. And he literally fell over backwards. So that kind of made Dave laugh. And the aliens, not only, well, first of all, what they did was they were able to draw out the water out of Beaver Creek. And he said it was like in a scientific lab, the area that it was in the spacecraft. And he said they took that water and they showed me how much pollution was in the water. And told him this is part of the problem with Earth today, that it's being poisoned. And they talked about the need to get off the planet eventually. They also told him that there was gold in the area. It may have been a way that he was funding his project, because we never knew just where he was getting his money. I mean, he would have had pensions, probably a veteran's pension and his old age pension. His wife probably had a disability pension because she was severely disabled in a wheelchair. But we never did find out about the gold. We watched the development of his craft over a period of, well, a few years anyway. We got into the workshop a number of times watching him put things together. We were there at one point where he had these huge rings, probably 8 feet across in diameter, and he was putting magnets, rectangular magnets, which were Earth magnets, all around these rings. Dave was quite often in a state where he would curse God and curse everybody, and he would curse these magnets because they were so brittle, and he had to use rivets to rivet them to the aluminum. So he'd go along and he'd get 3 or 4 done, no problem. All of a sudden one would crack and he'd curse, God damn, what the hell, here we go again. And it was a very frustrating process. But I understand that he had a number of people who were really interested in his science, the science of this type of propulsion, of magnets in opposition. This was the basis of the propulsion of this craft. And the craft was going to be, this time, 16 feet in diameter and covered in a layer, it was aluminum, and it would be covered in a layer of granite. And Dave said that the speed that it would take to get into space would convert that granite into clear glass.
This is the isotope line of energy, the triangle. The 3 beams that were on board the ship. 1, 2, 3. We bring them back in dimension. 1, 2, 3, smaller, halfway. Divide that again. Divide that again. You got 3 more.
Weird thing is, another weird thing when I moved here, I had this urge to look around because I'd already known the Hamel story, and if he had something here for me to find that he really wanted me to treasure, he would show me where it is. And this is one of the objects that I found thrown in the dirt. Nanomagnets and granite. So this has amethyst, alfalfa seed, another ingredient, some neomagnets, and granite.
Dave Hamel became quite a regular at the Bancroft Times. He would come to town for whatever he had to buy, and he'd show up and he'd start ranting and raving about his neighbors, and ranting and raving about the government, and ranting and raving about the lack of information humanity has about what's coming. What I saw in him, I'd seen in other people of his age that are just absolutely passionate about something. And as he talked, I got a little bit of his background. He was a military veteran from the Second World War. He worked on the Dew Line as a carpenter. And from that information, I knew that he had no way of understanding the science and the intricacies of building a spacecraft, Like he didn't study any of that stuff. It was just given to him. But I really enjoyed the fact that he was passionate about something like that at his age, you know, because he'd be in his 70s probably. So yeah, I never met anybody like him before and since.
We're scared. We're all scared to die. Everybody got an end. Everybody's got an end date. So we hope on these things. That way when the end is coming, if you're fortunate enough to see your end coming, you find that little bit of peace inside. That, yeah, you know, this might be the end of this ride, but it's not over yet. It's not over yet. We'll see where I go after this. Hamel had a really good thing going, and he just ran out of time to do it. And I feel his pain of not having the time to do it. But you never know when you're gonna go. And that's the real downer about it, is it can happen at any moment. So why not just make the best of what you got going on right now, you know?
Dave's soul, Dave's heart was about saving humanity. And he didn't express that to everybody, but you could read it from what he was telling you. So he had a big heart, you know. He was considering everybody else, and not just the neighbors, but he was talking about humanity. This, to him, that passion came from the fact that these aliens said, "You've got to do this because it's going to be necessary, and it's necessary for the future of all of humanity." Yeah. He had hoped that people would wake up and realize that, you know, we all have to work together. That's a pretty good basis for your life's work.
If you haven't heard of David Hamel, you should look into his life story. And if you can take anything from it, just take from it that he's trying to do something good for mankind, not for himself. If you're a sci-fi buff and you're just looking for somebody to laugh at, well, there's a mirror in most bathrooms. But if you're looking for information, good information, and a sign of hope, I'd look for David Hamel, the Granite Man.